And you have been watching a CBS News special report live from New Orleans, Louisiana, following up on a press conference from not only law enforcement officials, but also local and state officials talking about the latest updates on this terror attack that happened early New Year's morning on Bourbon Street. So I just want to repeat a few of the headlines to come out of this press conference. Number one, the FBI believes there is no accomplice, no other threat to the public as of right now. 2 IEDs were found near Bourbon Street. They say were placed there by the attacker just a couple of hours before the actual attack with that pickup truck. Also, Bourbon Street will reopen at about 2:30 this afternoon, their time, ahead of the Sugar Bowl game later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And also a big headline here. They say, as of right now, there is no link between this terrorist attack in New Orleans and the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas. But right away, I want to bring in Anna Schecter, who is the senior coordinating producer for the CBS News Crime and Safety Unit. She joins us now. Anna, authorities talked about trying to find possible accomplices. After we just mentioned this latest update, the focus of this investigation has shifted back to the suspect. What is the FBI saying about the suspect today? What did you take out of this press conference?
We learned a lot of new details, Liz, that were really interesting, particularly in the hours leading up to the attack. What I found interesting that we didn't note during the special report is that the videos were seemingly addressed to his family and friends, and that he initially was planning to carry out the attack and hurt his relatives and friends, but he wanted the attention to be on his extremist message. He wanted the focus to be on, quote, the war between the believers and non-believers, end quote. That is directly from that assistant director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, who was just speaking there at the podium. So that really jumped out at me, that he posted 5 videos to his social media in the early hours of December, right before he carried out the attack. It seems they were saying that it was, within in just a few hours, he was also placing those IEDs himself, those 2 IEDs that they believe were functional and that were neutralized by law enforcement. Just a reminder, they had the FBI, bomb squad, ATF, HSI, all on the scene at that horrific attack on Bourbon Street. But the profile of Mr. Jabbar, the attacker, is now coming together. We've dug in, our confirmed team, our own Rona Tarrant. She looked into his background and went through the divorce records. And so we've learned that he actually had been, up until recently, earning a pretty good salary. He reported $125,000 a year annually, but that he was in debt of about $40,000. This was back in 2022. He was explaining in filings to his ex-wife's lawyer that he couldn't make payments. So he was having financial struggles despite holding down a job, but it appears that in recent months and years, his life began to spiral downward. The FBI also said at the presser that he said in one of the videos that he posted right before the attack that he joined ISIS before this summer. So they are still firm in their analysis that his attack was inspired by ISIS. Of course, we can't forget that ISIS flag that was attached to the back of the truck when he was attacking. Also, authorities are still asking the public for help, for tips. They are relying on people to come forward and explain what they saw, particularly on Bourbon Street. They want to know a little bit more about how he was able to place those IEDs and carry out the attack without being stopped. Liz.
And Anna, I want to go back to that moment in the press conference when they talked about the videos the attacker posted on social media, that he was inspired by ISIS. Let's listen to that real quick.
And he posted several videos to an online platform proclaiming his support for ISIS. There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament. FBI and ATF. FBI, we have a couple different scenes at the location.
Yeah, a couple questions to come out of those statements on those videos posted on Facebook. The big question right now is, you know, how did the suspect become connected to ISIS? And then later on, possibly in the coming days, is if Facebook knew about these videos, did they alert law enforcement? But let's talk about first how the suspect possibly got connected to ISIS in the first place.
It's a great question, and it appears that investigators are still trying to pin that down. They have obtained 3 cell phones, 2 laptops. They're scouring his social media. They're presenting the information that they have buttoned up, these 5 videos, but they're looking to see who he was communicating with online. Was there somebody who was directing him to take action, or was this just a lone wolf who was inspired by the idea of ISIS and sort of this war on the West, and a war that he described in his video, according to the FBI, as a war between the believers and the disbelievers? Of course, investigators are going through all of his associates. Who was he spending time with? Who might have inspired him to carry out such an attack? But at this point, we don't have anything definitive that links him to a member of ISIS or other terror organization who was giving him any direction. Liz?
And Anna, authorities were also very careful to say that there is no known link between the attack in New Orleans and the Vegas Cybertruck explosion that happened just a few hours after the New Orleans attack. But there are some similarities to them, you know, notably that both attackers were in the military at some point, and then also they used the same car rental company to get both of these different trucks. What can you tell us about the investigation into the Cybertruck explosion in Vegas?
Well, immediately after that explosion, investigators started to look into that bizarre and mysterious explosion, which involved fireworks and gasoline in the trunk of that Tesla Cybertruck, and they're still working. The Army hasn't even released the driver's name, although, you know, our team has spoken to his family members who are still, at this hour, still waiting for confirmation from federal authorities. The FBI did go to his home in Colorado Springs. They're doing the same sweep of electronic devices that they did on Jabbar. As you noted, there are no known connections, but it is interesting that they both used Turo, which is an app kind of like almost like Airbnb, but for cars, where you can rent a car from another person. And they were both driving electric vehicles. Investigators were looking into whether there was some kind of coordination. They have not found any, according to that latest presser. We've asked Turo as well, did both men request electric vehicles, and in particular a Tesla? So that's definitely a line of questioning. At this point, it appears to be a very bizarre coincidence that both incidents occurred within hours of each other, both using electric vehicles. Both men were in the military and served overseas in Afghanistan. There was some overlap. Both men also had spent time in North Carolina. So investigators have been looking at all of this and determined at this point they have no evidence of a link between the two men or the two incidents. Liz?
All right. Anna Schecter, the senior coordinating producer for the CBS News Crime and Safety Unit. Thanks so much, Anna. All right, let's go now to CBS News national reporter Kati Weis. Kati, The FBI had a lot to say about the timeline between when the suspect left Houston and then the deadly attack where you are in New Orleans. What else do they have to say?
Well, you're right. They unpacked a lot of new details for us this morning that we've been waiting for throughout the last 24 hours since this terrible tragedy took place here. I'm actually standing on Canal Street, right where the attack first began. The driver drove right through, right down Bourbon Street there where you see the Walgreens sign. So it has been closed. The French Quarter has been closed ever since that took place. And now we're learning that may be changing very soon. We're also learning a little bit more about the two bomb devices or IEDs that were discovered in the French Quarter. We're learning that FBI bomb technicians were able to recover two of those IEDs in coolers. Apparently, the suspect had placed those IEDs in coolers in areas of the French Quarter, one at the area of Bourbon and Orleans Street, and then at another intersection a couple blocks away. And he placed those there before he carried out the attack. So that's some interesting new information as well. We are also told that those two devices were the only two functioning devices that were discovered. Investigators combed through hundreds of hours of videos to try to confirm and make sure that there was no other existing threat here in the French Quarter. And it sounds like at this point, investigators are very confident that the French Quarter and New Orleans is a safe place to be.
Yeah, they said they're going to reopen Bourbon Street ahead of the Sugar Bowl in just a couple of hours from now. All right, CBS News national reporter Kati Weis. Thanks so much, Kati, for that reporting.